Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to day 98 of the Free to Hope presents 12 Steps Applied to COVID-19. My name is Edwina B, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic for 31 years, one day at a time, as a result of practicing and implementing the 12 steps created by Alcoholics Anonymous over 80 plus years ago. Isn't that something? One day at a time. So I also am in recovery for day 98 of surviving COVID-19, along with 7 other family members. To God be all the glory. So FREE stands for From Recovery, Emerge Empowered to Give Hope to Others, help others prosper equally, which is why I've been prepared, called, and obligated and responsible to sharing with you my experience, my strength, my hope, my wisdom, my lack of wisdom, my bad decisions, my bad choices, and applying these 12 steps that are spiritual in nature to COVID-19. And for that, I acknowledge that I can breathe. I can smell. I can taste. I can feel. I can touch. I can hear. But the objective is to listen to how these 12 spiritual principles can be applied to any and all areas of your life, but we want to apply them specifically to COVID-19, its devastating impact, effects, outcome, and fatalities. So before we get started, we want to acknowledge who woke us up this morning, who breathed life into these vessels this morning, and give him homage. I don't care what you call them. You can call them the universe, the force, God, higher power, but know that it's not you and it's not me. So there lies the answer, and practicing these spiritual principles in all our affairs, because it is the Creator who knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of this COVID-19 pandemic. So for that alone, we need to align our will with God's will, but give him homage. We want to give homage to those who have transitioned from COVID-19, those who are in the process of transitioning from COVID-19, those family members who are left behind as a result of losing loved ones to COVID-19, those who are suffering through the severity of the symptoms of COVID-19, those who have been restored and are recovering from COVID-19, those who are doing the right thing in terms of preventing from catching COVID-19, and yes, those who are still in denial, who are defiant, who are selfish, who are self-centered, and still possess the attitude of being invincible, including with everyone around the world picking and choosing when to wear a mask, when to wash your hands, when to social distance, when to contact tracing, when to get tested, and when to get vaccinated. So in other words, we need to give homage to the entire human race while we all go through this knee-bowing experience, to the point where we have to ask our higher power, help me, help us. Because I am my brothers and sisters keepers. We are all in this together. So let's give homage to our Creator, and let's give homage to the entire human race by giving 30 seconds of silence. 30 seconds for a moment of silence for those who are in this pandemic that's happening simultaneously around the world. But through our higher power, who I choose to call God, there is an answer. And the answers are in the 12 spiritual principles. Join me for 30 seconds of a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. In the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, we do that often because we recognize that we have to give homage, acknowledgement, right, to the creator of it all, of it all. And that moment of silence just helps us to quiet our minds, focus on those who are still sick and suffering. And now we can apply it to COVID-19 for all of us who are sick and suffering in one way, shape, form, or fashion. Yes, that moment of silence just says we are humble. We want to practice humility, which is the step we are on now. Recovery principle number 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So whatever it is that stands in the way from you being used by your higher power to practice the CDC's simple suggestions, so that you can save your life, save your loved one's life, and possibly save others by doing these simple suggestions. And so what will help you to achieve that psychic change and your attitudes, ideas, and behaviors, to acknowledge that you must do the next right thing in order to help stop the perpetuation of COVID-19. So this is what all of these recovery conversations are about. And they started back in April of 2020 after an article by Dr. Scott T. Allison on March the 31st in Psychology Today, where he expressed 7 points that we can use as a society and how we can benefit from the wisdom of 12-step programs. So if you want to go back to April the 1st of 2020, you will see how I introduce the 12 spiritual principles as we combat this COVID-19. If you want to see the day that I shared with you what COVID-19 looked like on me, go to December the 3rd of 2020, because I am in day 98 of recovery, but it was December the 3rd that I came before you sickly. You want to see it? Are you from Missouri? Okay, let me show you what it looks like. Here I am with COVID-19. I didn't have these pearly white dentures in. My whole body ached like a toothache. I had a loss of smell. I had a loss of taste. Yes, I was fatigued, but yet and still my higher power gave me the strength to sit before you, transparent, sharing my experience, my strength, my hope, my wisdom, my lack of wisdom, my bad choices, my bad decisions, and how I help contribute to contracting COVID-19 and affecting members of my family as young as 2 years old to 78 years old. And guess what? They're both upstairs while I'm down here in my little makeshift studio, and they are breathing. They are alive. The 2-year-old and the 78-year-old, and those are in between. And guess what? It was only 2 out of the 8 that had symptoms, me and the 2-year-old. So you better believe I had to remember that I had these 12 spiritual principles that I did not use regarding COVID-19. But because God allowed me to survive COVID-19, he instructed me, showed me, demanded me, commanded me to share that information with you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I made. So yes, I know what it is to be defiant. I know what it is to be rebellious. I know what it is to don't want to listen to what people can tell you to do or go anywhere and all that kind of stuff. No, no, no. I had that feeling of being invincible with the information of the 12 steps. It just goes to show you how deep our character defects are and our self-centeredness. But because he allowed me and my family members to survive, I am willing to share that information with you and hope that you will listen. Listen. Okay, so let me acknowledge my sponsors, because if it wasn't for my sponsors, I would not be able to sit in front of you on this platform. And also on YouTube and other platforms, and I'm looking to increase. All right, so I want to acknowledge MDB Associates, Dr. Mary Douglas Bailey, Patchwork Human Services with Ebony Madry, Levante and Dorsey and Associates, Academy of Peace, Crafty Crab Seafood. That's where I had my 31st anniversary dinner at, and on February the 23rd, right? And I also want to acknowledge Free to Hope, from recovery, emerge, empowered to give hope to others. Okay. My other sponsors include, listen, I got patience today. Okay. They include Women Do Haul Transportation Services. My crown is by Mark Cooper at Mr. C's Barbershop. The attire that I'm wearing at times come from Morgan's of Delaware. And the Afrocentric attire I wear is from Lady T, housed at Morgan's of Delaware. And oftentimes, and I have one today, jewelry by Catherine Butler. And so far, save the best for last, Divine Light Recovery Center Supportive Housing. Divine Light because it parallels with Dr. Carl Jung, Dr. Bob, and Bill W. that said, what people like yourself need to address your alcoholism and drug addiction and all its associated behavior, you need divine intervention. And so as a result of 1930, whatever it was, that meeting, they found out that the medical field was limited, the religious field was limited, and what we needed to address our disease of alcoholism was divine intervention, divine providence that will bring us to the divine lights. In other words, we needed a spiritual experience to bring about a spiritual awakening, to increase our spiritual maturity, which will help us to have a spiritual transformation to achieve that psychic change. So Divine Light is my last sponsor, but parallels with what we are talking about. So if you want to be a sponsor, please cash at $ Free to Hope, or call me at 302-690-6679, or email me at edwina.bell@yahoo.com, edwina.bell, BELL, @yahoo.com. So we also want to share with you the importance of the resources that I use. And the resources that I had mentioned earlier was Dr. Scott T. Allison in that article, Psychology Today, right, where he emphasized the 7 points that are and can be applied to COVID-19. And they are letting go of control, patience, keeping the focus on oneself, trust, living in the present, social connections, and service to others. He used the approach from an Al-Anon anonymous angle, which again helps us to learn and benefit from the wisdom of all the 12-step programs, right? In all areas of our life, and particularly towards COVID-19. Now, the other resource that I use is by Jason Waller, because it's important, for us to find out about these 12 steps and how they can help us, how we can benefit from them, and how they can be broken down in a simplistic way so that a child can understand it, which is why I chose Jason Waller's Breaking Down the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So go to jasonwaller.com and you will see an awesome website with all the information of him and his family's journey through addiction to alcohol, drugs, and the lifestyle, but brought into the marvelous light of recovery. Okay, so now you may ask once again, and I'm going to share with you what they are, whether you are a gambler, whether you are lusting, whether you are a sex addict, whether you are a cocaine addict, whether you are a love addict. Guess what? The same 12 spiritual principles can be applied to any and all areas of our life that is causing us problems. So now, as a human race, we're going to apply it to COVID-19. And this is how they will read. 1, we admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, soundness of mind regarding COVID-19. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him regarding COVID-19. 4, made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves regarding COVID-19. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs regarding COVID-19. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all defects of character regarding COVID-19. And we have 7, where we humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings regarding COVID-19, which is the step we are on and have been for a few days. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all regarding COVID-19. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others, even you, regarding COVID-19. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it regarding COVID-19. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out regarding COVID-19. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others regarding COVID-19 and practice these principles in all our affairs. One thing that helped me to turn my world right side up and to really see the spiritual significance of these spiritual principles is a song by Donald Lawrence. And the words say, and listen carefully, listen. The words, the name of the song is called Spiritual. And it says, you are not a natural being having a spiritual experience. No, you are a spiritual being encased and walking this natural experience. Did you hear me? Listen, we are not, I are not a natural being having a spiritual experience. No, I are a spiritual being encased and walking this natural experience. So when we begin to learn, apply, dissect, evaluate, and practice these 12 spiritual principles in all our affairs, they can, and will address any and all physical conditions. This is just the vessel. So when we learn and incorporate and practice these 12 spiritual principles, we will achieve a psychic change and begin to address our old attitudes, ideas, and behaviors, decisions, and actions, and have that spiritual transformation that will bring about spiritual attitudes, ideas, behaviors, decisions, and actions. With any and all physical conditions, including this COVID-19. So there is a solution, and the solutions are in the steps. So when I ask you this question, are you being proactive, reactive, inactive, or responsible regarding COVID-19? And what basis do you use to determine where you are? Are you in the prevention, intervention, or restoration mode of COVID-19? And what basis are you determining that decision? Well, you have been and you can continue to be informed by using my experience, strength, and hope, Jason Waller's experience, strength, and hope, Dr. Scott T. Allison's experience, strength, and hope, and whoever who have benefited from using the 12 spiritual principles in all their affairs. Okay? So let's continue with our recovery conversation as we continue with recovery principle number 7. And so before I do that, I want to share with you day 2, part 4, which is the end of my recovery conversation on April the 2nd of 2020, where I went into detail with recovery principle number 1. This is the step that we have to take 100%. We admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. And so this presentation that I did on April the 2nd of 2020, this is the final footage of that recovery conversation. So if you want to go back to April the 1st up until now to see everything, you can. If you want to start from December the 3rd up until day 98, you can. But the information is there for you to review, share, so that you too can become a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. So let me share with you day 2, the end of our recovery conversation. It's going to pick up where it left off yesterday so that you can get the information regarding the importance of recovery principle number 1. After that is shown, we will continue with recovery principle number 7. Listen. And I accepted, and I'm letting you know. So I don't have to get frustrated by, oh, let me shut the windows. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me go outside and tell them I'm not. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let's bring it home. Am I powerless over what has happened in the world today? What's going on today? Billy, what's going on? Okay, you got something to say, Billy? Oh, I haven't toast to you. Okay, all right. Billy wants me to drink a cup of coffee. All right. It's my baby right here. Let's talk about what's going on today. Are you powerless over? I am. I accept it. Yes. If I don't accept it, if I don't accept what's going on in this world today with this COVID-19 thing, right? I could very easily lose control, lose my mind, go back to drinking, go back to drugging, go back to prostituting, go back to acting out and all kinds of dysfunction, unhealthy behaviors. Why? Because I refuse to admit that I'm powerless over what's going on? So if I admit that I'm powerless over what's going on in the world, then my life won't become unmanageable in the midst of the storm. And better yet, do I have control over how other people respond to the same situation? Understandably so, people are losing their minds. People are hurting. People don't know where to go, what to do. People are fearful. They are afraid. And when you have children, those that you're responsible for, looking at you like, what you gonna do, Dad? What you gonna do, Mom? Yeah. But through these 12 recovery principles, y'all, there's hope. Through these 12 recovery principles, we can be set free from recovery, emerge empowered. Yes, we can. But I can't fault you if you don't have the information. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing my part. I'm only one person. I'm just doing my part. Because in the midst of all this, I can keep a smile. I can keep the faith. I can keep the hope. I can do what I'm able to do. I can still be present for these little babies upstairs. They don't know what's going on. When they wake up, they want to eat. They want to poop, pee. They want to play. I don't need to miss none of that because I'm so engrossed with what's going on around me. And you would have to use those similar examples to ask yourself, what are you powerless over? How and what ways have your life become unmanageable as a result of your powerlessness? That was question number 2. And question number 3 that I want you to ponder on is, do you think you can ever regain power over what you were powerless over? It's not a trick question. And I have to watch how I say, because the other transparency that I have dentures. Normally I take them out, but I'm not going to take them out, but I have dentures. So sometimes my language or my words don't come out and I'm not able to articulate. But guess what? That's another example. Me being powerless over drugs and alcohol took my teeth. Yes. But recovery, utilizing the 12 recovery principles, allowed me to get some teeth back. So, I had to throw in a little humor there. You know what I mean? Because we take ourselves too seriously sometimes. And we forget to laugh. We forget to pause. So, I just like to interject some humor every once in a while. But getting back to that third question. Do you think you can regain power over what you were once powerless over? That's just like asking me, Edwina, do you think you can drink again? Do you think you can control your drinking again? Do you think that if you started prostituting, you can control that again? I know the answer. I know the answer for me. The answer for me is no. I can never regain power over drinking and drugging again. Never. And guess what? I don't want to. But these are the questions that I need you to ask. And so I'm not going to let what's going on in this world today with this COVID-19 pandemic take away what I have worked so hard for and contributed to these past 30 years. And more importantly, I refuse to tell God to kiss my behind. I'm sorry, I got to be transparent. I refuse to tell God to kiss my behind. And I'm going back out there and drink again. I refuse. I refuse to let what's going on in this world take me back to the streets. I refuse. So that means if I don't utilize these 12 recovery principles, I may tell you where to go. And that's a lot. That's going on a lot in the world. There's a lot of fights breaking out. There's a lot of rumbles and a lot of words and a lot of But through the 12 recovery principles, should I make that mistake, I know how to rectify it immediately. So that that power of drinking and drugging won't come back to the forefront of my mind, and I think I could. So I'll come back and I'll apologize to you. But I'm not going to tell God that. He's my hope. He is what's giving me this freedom. That's why I am able to face everything and recover. That's fear. That's another acronym. Face everything and recover. Face everything and rejoice. Or forget everything and run. There's a lot of fear going on today, y'all, with this COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of fear. But through the 12 recovery principles, we can learn how to gain wisdom from them, how to gain instructions from them, how to gain spirituality from them, how to gain strength from them. Yes. Because we want to face everything and recover. That's why I still go to my meetings every day after 30 years. Because we are given this day only, this day. And it's almost 7 o'clock in the morning, right? This day. Already, I'm full of joy. I'm full of hope. Why? Because what was inside, whether it's good or bad, I'm setting it free. I'm setting it free. So, just to recap, today was, we admitted we were powerless over whatever that, Billy, come on now. We were powerless over whatever in this particular situation, this COVID-19 pandemic, that our lives had become unmanageable. Because once we utilize these 12 recovery principles, it's not going to have power over us anymore. Because we're going to learn how to deal with it, accept it, change the things we can, but knowing the difference of what we need to accept and what we can change. What we can change with help. You hear me? With help. Okay? So, admit it means to confess to be true or to be the case typically with reluctance. That's what admitted means. And the 3 questions that I pose to you, and we'll leave with you, is what are you powerless over? How and in what ways have your life become unmanageable as a result of your powerlessness? And 3, do you think you can ever regain power over something you were once powerless over? Okay. So, tomorrow we are going to again do a quick overview of the presentation, and we're going to focus on recovery principle number 2, which states, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves, they go that I and we, ourselves, could restore us to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than us could restore us to sanity. And sanity means, honey, soundness of mind. So once we admitted we were powerless over something and our lives had become unmanageable, we're going to discuss tomorrow what power out there is greater than us that can help restore us to soundness of mind. Okay? So, thank you.
All right. So I am so glad that you were able to listen and hear what is conveyed in order to take that first step 100% and admitting that we are powerless over this COVID-19, that it is, has, and will continue to make our lives unmanageable unless we learn to apply these 12 spiritual principles to COVID-19 and decrease the perpetuation of it. All right? So tomorrow, I'm going to give you day 3, the beginning of recovery principle number 2 that was recorded on April the 3rd of 2020. So this way you get a little bit of the old with the update. So we are on recovery principle number 7, but I wanted to show the transparency, number 1, how I was willing to be used by God to help rescue other people, right? And how honest I am and was and will continue to be. And hoping that you too listen to learn to listen, so that you too can become a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. All right. So with that, I also want to take a second and recognize the month of March, which is Women's Month, so they say, but every day is everybody's day. How about that? But I want to recognize 2 women in my life, and maybe you can do the same thing, and I suggest you do, particularly if they yet live. If you have loved ones that yet live, when you apply these 12 spiritual principles, you will begin to not take anything for granted. Anything and no one. That's how in tune you will become when you begin to practice these 12 spiritual principles. Every moment counts. Every second counts. Every day counts. Huh? And we need to make the best of it by practicing these 12 spiritual principles to address any and all physical conditions. So right now, even though my mother and my auntie mama have transitioned, I can yet acknowledge them so that their spirit continues to live on within me. So here is my mommy. I'm going to put her up in my face. That's her laying in bed. She was transitioning from hospice, and I got to lay in her arms every day, every morning, every night. And she's looking up to the heaven and saying, Lord, thank you for my 6 children, and thank you for this one. Out of 6 children, 4 of us were addicted at the same time,
and I happen to be the worst. But guess who God chose to be there for her and 6 other family members before they transitioned? Me. I also want to acknowledge my auntie Mama. Yup, she is the one that helped me to understand the difference of being a lady and a woman. Margaret Matilda Kemp Williams. I give homage to my auntie Mama. She didn't have any children, but she selected me as her daughter. And God also prepared me to take care of her. So recognize the women in your life, particularly during this month of March. All right. So you ready to get back to our recovery conversation on recovery principle number 7? All right, so where we left off at yesterday, I believe was question. Was question. Wait. Wait a minute. Let something is. All right, listen. Listen. I love being transparent. Yes, I do. So y'all just hold on a second. All right. So where I want to go is up here, and I want to get the questions that we are going to deal with in recovery principle number 7. So we know that 1 through 6 were the foundation for recovery principle number 7. And so when we talk about the character defects of different portions of our character, right? Character defects. We know that with 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So if we identified in step 4, lying was a character defect. In step 5, we talked to another person to get to the exact nature of lying, which was identified as fear. And then in step 6, we became entirely ready to have God remove all the defects of character, of lying, and of fear. And now that we have been made aware of our character defect and made aware of the exact nature, then in recovery principle number 7, when I feel that character defect about to rear its head, and if I feel like I'm about to lie again, have lied, right? I feel the need to lie, I can ask God right then and right there to remove that shortcoming from me. And as a result of doing that, we go to the questions that were posed by Jason Waller that we used in order to prepare us and give us a better understanding of recovery principle number 7. One was, how has my understanding of my higher power grown? 2, how have the previous 6 steps prepared me for step 7? 3, how does being aware of my own humility help when working the 7th step, right? Then we went on to 4, 5, and 6, which says, okay, all right, wait a minute. All right, it's going too fast. All right, here on number 4, it says, how do I plan to ask a God of my understanding or higher power to remove my shortcomings? 5, am I comfortable with prayer and meditation, even if it means making up my own? And 6, has my sense of perspective or reality been out of proportion lately? So I encourage you to go back to my previous archives and podcasts and see what the detailed conversation was about in order to gain a better understanding of where we are now. So yesterday we did number 7. Have there been times when I have been able to stop from acting on a character defect and practice a spiritual principle? So if you need an example, let's see. Let me see if I can give you one right now. Because like I say, step 7 is a present step, right? So it says, were you able
to practice a spiritual principle instead of a character defect. So yesterday morning, on my way to the meeting, I got very agitated. I got very frustrated because I had a conversation with somebody and they failed to do something that they know they needed to do. And because I am responsible for that person, I allowed that situation to bring about that character defect of frustration and anger, right? And I felt my body tensing up. Now, this is on my way to the 12-step meeting, right? Okay. And so while I'm going through that and what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do, and all this kind of stuff, right? In the moment, yes. And so by the time I pulled up to the meeting, I got out the car, went to the meeting, I set up everything, and then I allowed myself to put that information or that feeling on the back burner while I set up the meeting. And then as I was setting up and opening up the meeting, it came right back. That frustration, that anger, that if I could have, would have, should have, I know what I'm going to do type of thing. And then during the meeting, the first part, when that gentleman read the daily reflection, he read the daily reflection. And it had something to do with aligning my will with God's will. And it was the acronym of God, good orderly direction. And so right then and right there, I was restored to sanity. Yes, just by hearing and listening to that word. Edwina, align your will with God's will regarding this situation. Yes. And I'm telling you, that allowed me to go through the rest of my day without having those feelings of frustration and anger. No, by practicing that principle of good orderly direction and turning it over and putting that situation into its perspective, right? I could have stayed in that funk all day long. For what? When I humbly asked him to remove my shortcoming. So that's an example of a character defect rearing its head and going through the process. Not very long now, because that's my humanness. But because I had this information, I had a choice. But I was reminded by the reading. So God restores us to sanity when we least expect it if we are humble enough to ask for help. And so that's one example, right? Okay, so now let's go back to the question. And let's see what it says for recovery principle number 8, right? This is the last question for step 7 as outlined by Jason Waller, Jason Waller, Wahler. So go to jasonwaller.com to get this information and extract it and work on it yourself. All right. So here's the last question of the series. Okay. It says number 8. Are there any shortcomings that have been removed from my life, or at least diminished in their power over me? Let's read that again. Are there any shortcomings that have been removed from my life, or at least diminished in their power over me? And so, because we are applying COVID-19, we are applying these steps to COVID-19. Are there any shortcomings that have been removed or have been diminished? All right. So, because I've had this information for now 31 years, right? And I've been practicing these principles in all my affairs, right? Okay. And I also know that I did not consciously choose to apply these 12 spiritual principles
to COVID-19. And so that made me think, okay, Edwina, what was going on with you and you so-called practicing these principles in all your affairs? What was going on with you that you did not take COVID-19 seriously? What was it about your attitudes, ideas, behaviors, Edwina, that gave you that sense of being invincible? Edwina, what were you thinking when they suggested that you wear a mask, that you wash your hands, that you social distance, that you get tested, that you ultimately get vaccinated? What were you thinking? And see, this is these are the kinds of questions that we pose in a 12-step program when we go to our meetings and we're going through something and something has happened or something has occurred. And guess what they say in our 12-step program? And recovery principle number 10, where it says continue to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, they say that there's a spiritual axiom that every time I am disturbed, no matter what the cause or the situation, there is something wrong with me. Yes. And so when I ask that question, has any, right here it is again, okay? It says, are there any shortcomings that have been removed from your life or at least diminished in their power over me, over you, right? And so, wow, I had to double take and read that question again, because I thought I was doing the right thing by so-called practicing these principles in all my affairs. But guess what? No, I wasn't, right? Because having that shortcoming of applying these principles to all my affairs, so here I go again, the shortcoming of picking and choosing what I'm going to apply or not apply these 12 steps to. And so that being present and being conscious and applying these things to all my affairs, it reared its head. It had not been removed. Why? Because I contributed to contracting COVID-19. So that character defect of thinking I'm invincible, that character defect of being defiant, or being stubborn and self-centered was not removed. Yes, it was diminished in some way, shape, form, or fashion, but it wasn't removed. Why? Because it's evident I contributed to contracting COVID-19. So you better believe now, after surviving COVID-19 and 7 of my family members surviving COVID-19. Oh, yes. All righty then. Oh, yes. That attitude of not practicing these principles in all my affairs, specifically and directly to COVID-19. Oh, yes, it has been diminished. And I'll know sooner or later if it has been removed, because even though I am doing what is suggested, I am listening to the updated research. I am listening to the updated data, right? I'm tuned in to the numbers that was compared to last year's 30, 40 people to over 500,000 people have died. So these character defects, if not addressed, if not removed, if we don't ask God to remove our shortcomings, we could become one of these statistics. Yes, we can. Right? And so I have to be vigilant. I have to be determined and persistent and consistent with practicing the CDC's simple suggestion of washing my hands, social distancing, wearing the mask, contact tracing, getting tested, and getting vaccinated. Yes, I got vaccinated. You want to see? Are you from Missouri? Let me show you. So obviously that character defect have been diminished. About I'm not going to get the vaccine. I don't know. No, I got it. And let me show you. Here's the first one. All right. Here's the first vaccine shot I got. February the 6th. I had to dispel all the rumors. I had to go back in my history to read, but I also had to be present and look at who was getting the vaccine, doing my research, asking questions in the whole 9 yards, to the point where allowed God of my understanding to help remove that shortcoming of doubt and to step out on faith and be a part of the solution. Right? All right. So now I'm going to show you the next one I got, which was 4 weeks later. Here it is. Okay. All right. So this one, he said, a shot of hope. Yes, a shot of hope. The reason I'm able to get the vaccination, right, is because I asked my higher power to remove that shortcoming of doubt, to remove that shortcoming of being a hypocrite, to remove that shortcoming of being in denial, to remove that shortcoming by being apprehensive. What? No. People are dying within minutes of each other. And it is my obligation, my responsibility, my duty, and it's my honor to share with you, right, the stupidity that I had. I'm not going to say I was ignorant because I heard and read and saw the information. I saw the tangible evidence and people losing loved ones. You go back to talk to them, right, who've lost loved ones, who's suffering from this COVID-19, who have been restored from COVID-19, you will hear that if I woulda, coulda, shoulda. You will hear, like you're hearing from me, all I had to do was to apply these 12 spiritual principles that I already had knowledge of for the past 30 years, now 31 years, and yet I did not apply it to COVID-19 then, which is why I contracted it and infected members of my family. So you better believe, I have stopped thinking about those character defects that got me into the situation. It has been removed or it has been diminished to the point where I consistently promote what we need to do. And I lead by example. I have these family members, particularly my grandchildren, watching me. So age appropriate, yes, get tested and get vaccinated, right? We wear our masks, we social distance, right? We wash our hands, We keep our little family network close. Yes. Until such time our Creator says enough is enough. But in the meantime, I still got to practice these principles in all my affairs. And when I find myself wanting to do the wrong thing and not the right thing, I can humbly ask Him to remove that shortcoming from me. Turn around and go back and get that mask. Go and wash your hands. Go and get tested. Don't go to that park. Don't go to that party. Social distance. Yes. And if it's anything that's going to stop me from doing the next right thing in order to stop the perpetuation of COVID-19, ask for help. I'm going to ask for help. Humbly ask Him to remove that shortcoming because my life depends on it, the life of my loved ones, and even possibly your life. So let me end by saying we concluded the questions with recovery principle number 7. And tomorrow we will continue and hopefully conclude recovery principle number 7. But in the meantime, if it's God's will that He breathe life into you tomorrow, me tomorrow, if He decides to wake you up or wake me up tomorrow to be among the chosen ones, then lead by example, lead by attraction, wear the mask, social distance, wash your hands, contact tracing. Yes, get tested and get vaccinated. All right, so be safe, and let me close out by no, I did that already. Let me acknowledge my sponsors, all right, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to be on as many platforms as I possibly could. And I'm looking to continue expanding my platform. And I can do that by you becoming a sponsor and supporting those who are sponsoring me, right? Again, they are MDB Associates, Dr. Mary Douglas Bailey, Patchwork Human Services, where Ebony Madry, Levante and Dorsey and Associates, Academy of Peace, Crafty Crab, where I had my celebration, right, of my 31st anniversary, right? Free to Hope, from recovery, emerge, empowered to give hope to others, right? And my other sponsors included Women Do Haul Transportation Services, right? And we also have Mr. C's Barbershop, that he's responsible for my crown. And we have Morgan's of Delaware, Lady T at Morgan's of Delaware, and Jewelry by Catherine Butler. And last but not least, Divine Light Recovery Center and Supportive Housing. So if you want to be a sponsor so I can continue to avail this information free to the public and expand my platforms to share the hope, we do recover. We can be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. Please become a sponsor. And so until we meet again, and if it's God's will that we meet tomorrow, make the best of it, make it a happy day, and you can, in spite of what's going on in the world today. Be mindful of your actions, be mindful of others, and keep the faith. We do recover.